Hello, and thank you for your interest in the PII Vault from Anonymatic. In this video, we're going to show you how to configure the PII Vault plugin for Domo Workbench so you can either anonymize or mask your data before it gets into Domo. It's important to realize that you will need to have both a working version of the Vault, either one within your own firewall, one that you're using with a shared data partner, or you've signed up for one of our trial accounts. The PII Vault plugin for Workbench does need to have a version of the PII Vault that it can connect to do its job. The other thing is that you will need to have downloaded and configured the PII Vault plugin for Workbench. There are videos that have been created and shared for both of those purposes. So assuming that is all done, let's go ahead and get started. Inside Workbench, as you see, we do have the PII Vault Transform plugin. So when we go to jobs, we can go ahead and create a new job. And I'll just call this one test. And we're going to pick, in this case, a CSV file that's just got a couple of records in it. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And once that job is done, I'll select the file. It's just some transaction data on some purchases. We'll look at that data and see what's there. You'll see that there is some non-personal information, just transaction information, like the transaction amount and the date. Then there's the customer, their name, their email address, their physical address, phone number, and then there's the department, region, and so on. That is information that we want in Domo. So let's go ahead and clear that out. We're going to save that now so we have that schema. The next step is we actually add in the PII Vault Transform plugin. So under Transforms, we click Add, and there's a new PII Vault Transform. Click on plus, and that's going to give us a dialog here that we have a couple different things we need to set. The first is this information is about the vault and the job you're going to run, and the lower is all the data that is going to be in the transform. Now, I mentioned before that to use this, you will have had to have created an account with the PII Vault. When you did that, you should have received an email from the PII Vault that has this information. At the bottom is the API access URL, an account ID, and API key. We're going to use all of those values. So I copy that. I'm going to plug that in right here. If you're using an internal version of the PII Vault, it may actually have a port number on it. So you may need to do something like 9443, which is the default port for any of the Docker instances. But we're using the trial account right now, so that's not necessary. So then the account ID, I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. And then I need the API key as the last value. I copy this. And I put that in there. All right. The next thing is you can either mask or redact the PII in the data. Redacting is we're going to take anything identified as PII and to be redacted, and we're just going to blank out those values. Mask is we'll replace those values with non-identifying fake values. So instead of Bob Smith, it could be Tom Jones would be in your data. And that's how you can use live production data with fake values and use it to generate reports or do the other things you might want to do. So that's the initial setup. After that, you've got the different data fields that are actually in the schema, in the data that you have loaded. And there could be just a dozen or so like we have, or there could be hundreds. The next step is to actually go through each one of these and define whether it's PII, and if it is PII, what kind of PII is it? So the company name is not PII. So we can come here and we can say that it's non-PII. Like I said, you could have hundreds of fields here. So you don't have to set these if it's non-PII. You can just leave it blank, and that's perfectly fine. So we're going to leave blank the transaction date, the transaction amount. Customer ID is definitely PII. So in each set of data, there must be one value that's the unique key to the individual. And this is a value that's going to be consistent from you loading data about this person. That information would come through and it's going to be the same value each and every time. And when you define that value as the unique key to the individual, then the PII vault will supply the same polyanonymous ID or multi-value non-identifying identifier to every data record so that when it comes up into Domo, it can be combined. So because that is PII and we don't want that exposed in Domo, we're going to check this box to say mask or redact that value. So the region name, department name, those things are not PII. First name is. So I can just click the first letter here and go straight to there instead of having to scroll. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each of these. And I'm going to say what all these different types of PII are. So city, state, zip, and phone number. All of those things are now defined. So I'm going to finish this by defining which of these fields I actually want redacted. Well, anything that is absolutely uniquely identifying, like the person's name, you're going to want to redact those most often. Email address, the same thing. But if you want to report in Domo based upon gender, well, then don't bother redacting that. The address, yes. City, state, and zip, no. We may want to do analytics. You can redact them. You don't have to in this case. Phone number, you probably want to redact as well. So there you go. That's it. I apply it. I'm going to save those changes. Now, when I preview this, you're going to see that the data that we looked at before, all of the fields that I said redact are completely blank. In the future version of Workbench, they're just going to be gone, but right now they're just blank. And the other fields that were not marked as redacted, even if they're PII, like the gender, the city, the state, or the zip, those values pass through because I said do not redact them. Another value gets added, polyanonymous ID. This is the value that goes into Domo, and every time you load data where somebody is identified by that unique identifier and it's the same value, and it's your same account ID and API key, you're always going to get the same polyanonymous ID. That lets you join this data in Domo at the individual level without ever loading that data into Domo. So we can take a look at it, see that it actually worked. All that's good. I can preview it. And now you just run and load that data into Domo. So there you go. Pretty easy, huh? Any questions, any problems, please feel free to reach out to your Domo rep, or you can reach out to an automatic directly. Thank you very much and enjoy using the PII vault.